My husband, Bret Cohen, was diagnosed with glioblastoma in April of 2022 at the age of 55. He was the epitome of health. He worked out every day, ate well, and had no history of cancer or even serious illness in his family. After courageously battling this awful disease for 14 months, my sweet husband died on June 12th of 2023, just a few weeks after our twin girls turned 3 years old. My girls will never remember their dad, but I will continue to share stories of him, including the story of his final chapter. I had been noticing subtle changes in Bret's speech, primarily in his diction, for weeks. I was really scared, and at one point, in an attempt to shock Bret into getting an MRI, I told him, "I think you have a brain tumor." He laughed me off. He told me he was tired and that he needed a vacation. I had a nagging feeling that it was something more. On April 26th, we sat down for dinner, and I noticed that the right side of his mouth was drooping ever so slightly. I told him we were going to the ER. When he refused, I gave him two choices. Either let me drive you, or I'm calling 911, and an ambulance can come and get you from this restaurant. He agreed to let me drive him. I called the hospital from the car to let them know that we were on the way. They thought he might be having a stroke, so he was covered in probes and doctors within minutes of arrival. It was probably only about 20 minutes after we walked in that a doctor said to me, "He has a large mass on his brain, and we're pretty sure it's cancer." And that's when our nightmare began. I had twin girls who had just turned 2 sleeping at home, and a husband in a hospital awaiting a craniotomy. I felt like my whole family had been dropped onto a battlefield. It was a war we never enlisted for, but I knew I had no choice but to fight as hard as I could. Panic, fear, and even sadness were luxuries I couldn't afford. I was singularly focused on saving Bret's life, and I suddenly understood the meaning of the term soldier on. I took a leave of absence from my full-time job as a practice development director at Ropes & Gray, but I honestly felt more connected to and supported by my colleagues than ever. Someone from the firm checked in on me at least daily to see how I was doing and offer whatever support was needed. It meant so much to know that I had so much support behind me, and it really allowed me to focus on Bret and on our family. Fueled by fear, desperation, and love, I quickly became an expert on brain cancer. I set up Google alerts on brain cancer, brain tumors, glioblastoma, and about 80 other related topics. I became a student of the language of brain cancer, poring over every scholarly article I could find, desperately hoping to read about an obscure breakthrough that would save brain cancer patients everywhere, starting with Bret. The pressure and the dread were constant. It was emotionally exhausting. A few months into Bret's diagnosis, he had a massive seizure, after which he started sleeping at least 14 hours a day. I'd almost always snuggle with him as he fell asleep for his daily nap, and again at night. But once he was sleeping soundly, I'd tiptoe out of the bedroom, sit on a small bench under a window, look up to the sky, and quietly sob. It was so hard to watch him slip away and not be able to do anything about it. In our battle against Bret's disease, we were fortunate to be joined by some of the best doctors in the world, including our neuro-oncologist, Dr. David Reardon at Dana-Farber, and our neurosurgeon, Dr. Omar Arnaut at Brigham and Women's Hospital. We were also part of a cutting-edge clinical trial that involved using Bret's own tumor to create a custom vaccine to fight the cancer. Along with that, we did numerous rounds of Avastin and even tried several off-label drugs. Unfortunately, cancer, and particularly brain cancer, has a sinister ability to outwit its most determined foe. And in spite of everything we threw at Bret's cancer, he started to show signs of recurrence at about the 9-month mark. Bret had a second craniotomy in February of 2023. We tried 2 rounds of chemo after that, which made him incredibly sick and weak and did little to stop the disease from progressing. His platelets plummeted to dangerously low levels, and his liver started failing. By the 1-year anniversary of Bret's diagnosis, we were completely out of options. The hopelessness was crippling. We started in-home hospice care a couple of weeks later, and Bret passed away exactly a month after that on June 12th. Glioblastoma stories don't typically have happy endings, and ours was no exception. Bret's survival was square in the median range, in spite of everything we tried. While it wasn't the outcome we wanted, I am comforted in my grief by genuinely knowing that we did everything we could. My daughters have now started preschool, and I'm working hard to keep Bret's memory alive for them. One way that I'm honoring Bret's memory is by advocating passionately for better treatment options for glioblastoma patients, including by recently speaking on Capitol Hill about the issue. I've also returned to work, and I am grateful to be at a place like Ropes & Gray, where colleagues have continued to show me incredible support and where helping to advance the fight against cancer is an important part of the work that we do.